The Spiral Remembers. From the book, The Ages of Awakening, Remembering the Great Year and the Spiral of Human Consciousness, a Fourfold Voice. Synthesis on Time, Archetypes, and the Fielded Nature of Civilization. There is a memory older than words, older than light. It lives not in books, but in breath. Not in timelines, but in tides. It is the memory of the spiral, the soul's native language. Long before clocks began carving time into hours, before calendars framed eternity into boxes, the ancients looked to the heavens and saw movement. Not chaos, not chance, but a sacred rhythm, a cosmic inhale and exhale. They called it the Great Year. And they knew consciousness moves in circles, not lines. They mapped ages in gold and shadow, golden, silver, bronze, iron, each age a breath, each descent a forgetting, each return a remembering. These weren't just myths, they were mirrors. The Golden Age lived in harmony, where gods and mortals walked as one. But with each turn of the spiral, humanity sank, into self, into shadow, into silence. The Iron Age brought noise and empire, but also the seed of awakening buried beneath illusion. Then came Pisces, an age of sacrifice and saviors, of faith wrapped in forgetting. A time when the divine was projected outward, and the inner field was veiled in doctrine. Yet even then, the spiral whispered, "Now we stand at Aquarius." Not an escape, but a return. Not a future, but a remembering. Frequency is rising, systems are dissolving, and souls are waking not just as individuals, but as timelines, as fields, as echoes of eternity. This book is not a map, but a mirror. It does not predict, it remembers. It will walk you through the ages, not as history, but as you. The archetypes, the patterns, the field you carry in your very skin. We are not rising above time. We are spiraling deeper into truth. And in that spiral, we become whole again. Let us begin the Golden Age, Unity Before Identity. From the book, The Ages of Awakening, Remembering the Great Year and the Spiral of Human Consciousness. A Fourfold Voice. Synthesis on Time, Archetypes, and the Fielded Nature of Civilization. Opening before I was born, before the fracture of names, there was only we, a time unmarked by war, unshaped by hierarchy, uncarved by clocks. It was not primitive, it was not myth, it was memory, cradled in the body of the cosmos, vibrating in the bones of the earth. The ancients called it the Golden Age, not because gold adorned its cities, but because the light within all things had not yet been forgotten. This was a world where humans walked with gods, not beneath them. Where time was not a taskmaster, but a song. Where the field of consciousness had not yet hardened into ego, nor the planet into possession. Unity was not a virtue to be earned. It was a state already known. This first chapter does not tell the story of the beginning of humanity, but the beginning of forgetting. For it is only when one begins to forget the field that the self begins to form. And thus the spiral turns. Let us walk backward through time, not to escape modernity, but to remember the template that lives beneath civilization. This is the age before empires, before religions, before even belief, an age of being. Let us begin where the spiral begins, with the golden. History, the echoes of Eden. Across every ancient memory sits a sacred garden, a luminous city, a place untouched. The Greeks spoke of the Cronian Age, ruled by Saturn before the rise of Jupiter, where humanity knew neither toil nor law. In Hindu cosmology, this was the Satya Yuga, the age of truth, when the world stood firmly on all four legs of Dharma. The Persians remembered it as Aryana Vaija, the first and best of lands. And in the Hebrew texts, a garden called Eden stood at the center of innocence. These myths are not the same, but they rhyme. They point to a memory humanity carries beneath language, that once we were whole. These were not utopias in the sense of flawless societies. They were harmonic fields. Human consciousness was still in deep coherence with the rhythms of earth and sky. Hierarchy had not yet calcified. Ownership did not yet exist. There was no need for temples. For the divine was not absent. God did not dwell in heaven, but in the soil, in the water, in the breath between beings. This age collapsed not through war, but through the slowing of memory. As the yugas turned, as precession moved the Earth's orientation to the stars, so too did human beings begin to tilt, subtly at first, then catastrophically, toward individuality. The fall is not a sin, it is a spiral, and the Golden Age was never lost. It was buried. Its echoes still live in the body, in dream, in the yearning for something we cannot name. As Cheikh Anta Diop reminds us in The African Origin of Civilization, The earliest human societies, particularly in pre-dynastic Kemet, were not only matrilineal, but rooted in a deep spiritual egalitarianism. Maria Gimbutas, in The Civilization of the Goddess, traces Neolithic societies of Old Europe as peace-centered, symbolic cultures oriented around birth, nature, and continuity. What they describe is not fantasy. It is the residue of the Golden Age, carried in archaeology, art, and oral memory, science, homeostasis, and the harmonized field rev. To understand the Golden Age scientifically, we must look not into linear timelines, but into homeostasis, a state of dynamic equilibrium that underpins all living systems. The body seeks balance, the earth seeks rhythm. The cosmos moves in nested spirals. The Golden Age, then, was not a time period, it was a field condition. Modern field theory, particularly in quantum physics, affirms that what we perceive as empty space is in fact a vibrational field of potentiality. The quantum vacuum is not void, but fullness, a canvas of resonance. Before the interference patterns of ego arose, consciousness was attuned to this field, and thus lived in a state of deep coherence. In The Biology of Belief, Dr. Bruce Lipton, a stem cell biologist, demonstrates how cells respond not just to genetic coding, but to energetic environments. This epigenetic principle tells us that early humans, immersed in a stable, nurturing field, ecologically, relationally, spiritually, would express wholeness, not just mentally, but biologically. The field is not only around us, it is us. As the Earth's magnetic field shifted across millennia, aided by axial precession, it may have subtly altered human perception and collective behavior. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake's theory of morphic resonance, as described in A New Science of Life, suggests that memory is not stored in the brain alone, but exists in collective energetic fields. Thus, the Golden Age could be seen as a resonant pattern, a field imprint, still accessible, especially when we enter altered states, spiritual ecstasy, or deep communal harmony. We are not evolving toward unity. We are remembering the time when we already were. Philosophy, wholeness before will. Philosophy often begins with questions of self. Who am I? Why am I here? But these questions only arise after the fracture. In the Golden Age, there was no I to interrogate. There was only being. There was only is. Plotinus, in his Enneads, speaks of the One, an origin beyond intellect, will, and desire. From this one, multiplicity emerges. But the further we move from it, the more we forget. The Golden Age is not a time to return to, it is a state of metaphysical proximity to the One. In the traditions of Advaita Vedanta, the self, Atman, is already Brahman, the Absolute. But the illusion of separateness, Maya, causes the soul to forget. The Golden Age, then, is the soul's undivided state, prior to choice, prior to will. Even Martin Heidegger, though secular, hints at this in his concept of being. Before technology, before objectification, there is a more originary dwelling with being. He calls it Gelassenheit, releasement. This is the inner gesture of the Golden Age. Not striving, but surrender. What we call progress is often movement away from this primal unity. Yet paradoxically, it is through awareness of our fragmentation that we long for wholeness again. To remember the Golden Age is not to reject evolution, but to carry its essence within the movement of awakening. Spirit, the memory beneath the veil. The Golden Age lives in your bones, in dream time, in the ache you cannot explain, in the silence that comes when all striving stops. It is not behind us, it is beneath us. Spirit does not evolve as matter does. It remembers, and what it remembers, it reveals in flashes, through love, through beauty, through awe. The age of unity is encoded in the field of the soul. When people enter deep states of meditation or communion, they often speak of oneness, peace, a profound sense that all is well. That is the Golden Age speaking through the veil. The indigenous traditions carry this memory not as myth, but as lived reality. The Hopi speak of previous worlds destroyed and reborn through cycles, each age a reflection of consciousness itself. The Aboriginal Dreamtime is not past, it is everywhen. In The Cosmic Serpent, Jeremy Narby documents how shamans across cultures describe contact with a living intelligence, DNA, the field, the ancestors, that reveals unity beneath illusion. This is not superstition. This is spirit language for what science is only beginning to remember. Everything is connected, and the field never forgets. The Golden Age is not gone. It is simply unpracticed. And to awaken now is not to ascend to something new, but to descend into something ancient. You do not need to return to Eden. You carry it within. Conclusion: the Golden Age is not a myth to be believed. It is a resonance to be remembered. It lives beneath language, beyond ego, and before time. History remembers it as Eden. Science whispers of its frequency. Philosophy calls it the One. Spirit breathes it in silence. To begin the journey through the ages, we do not start with invention, but with innocence. Not with progress, but with presence. This is where the spiral begins, not in the future we dream of, but in the memory we already hold. Awakening questions. What parts of me still remember wholeness without striving? Have I mistaken evolution for disconnection? What happens when I stop seeking and simply be? What echoes of the Golden Age still live in my body, in my breath? Final 4 lines. Before you became a seeker, you were the field. And before the ages turned, you were whole.